So welcome. On behalf of myself, Eric Delehoy, and Devon Simpson, we are the two counselors at Delehoy College Counseling. And basically what we do at Delehoy College Counseling is we work privately with area families, students and their families, and help them navigate the college search and application process. And before we begin, just a little bit about me, and I'll have Devon introduce herself. I come from the college side of things. My background is college admission. I worked at both a large public university and a small private liberal arts college, and did that for about 15 years. This is going into year 11 of Delehoy College Counseling being around, and I worked with another counselor in town for about 3.5 years. So I've been doing this for a little while. I told a student the other day in a first meeting that I've been college counseling for as long as she was alive, and her jaw dropped a little bit, and that made me feel old, so I'm not going to use that anymore. But again, welcome. We're glad you're here, and I want to have Devon introduce herself, and we'll begin.
Hi, thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Devon Simpson. I have been involved with college admissions counseling since 2006, and I have worked with students regionally, nationally, and internationally. And so we're glad to have you join us this evening, and hope you find the presentation helpful.
All right. So to start with here, I always like to start with a quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes from Stephen Antonov. And to just kind of frame our presentation tonight, Devon and I both view the college process not as a science, but as an art. There's a lot of starts and stops and a lot of kind of introspection that goes into this. So you can't just plug in grades, test scores into a magical machine and have the perfect schools kind of line up. You really have to engage in that. And so we're hoping to give you some ideas on how to engage, how to find the information that you need as you go through this process. So what are we going to talk about tonight? The first thing, we're going to talk about establishing roles. You know, who should be doing what? You know, what are students responsible for? How can parents help? We're going to talk a lot about what we talk about in our office, which is focusing on overall fit, which colleges fit students best, or what factors will make students figure that out. We'll talk about researching, how to begin to look at resources offline and online to figure out where to start with, you know, building colleges lists. And then we'll talk about visual and performing arts colleges for a little bit. And then I'll talk about what happens behind closed doors. How do colleges and universities look at student applications? How do they make their decisions? Then we will touch on financial aid and scholarships. We are going to have a larger program on financial aid and scholarships in August for families, so they can take advantage of that if they would like to. And then everyone's thinking about COVID. We're all living it right now, and it does impact the college admission process in some ways. Some ways we know, some ways we do not, so we want to address that. And then kind of wrap it up talking about perspective as we move forward. So without any further ado, let's move on. All right. So the most important part of this whole process is thinking about who is actually going to college. Now, when I give this presentation in a school auditorium, usually when we do college nights, which we don't have this spring, I often ask students to raise, or folks to raise their hands for this question. And of course, students raise their hand and say, of course I'm going to college. And then I ask all the parents in the room, oh, look who's going to college. Whose process is this actually? And then I ask everyone to put their hands down and ask who wants to go back to college. And then you'll see a lot of parents' hands go up from there. And so this is a student process, and I think it's important to highlight that students really are the decision makers and should be the drivers of their processes. And students, that means that you have to be responsible for engaging in the process as well, doing your research, filling out your applications, thinking about what's going to work for you in that ultimate college decision. However, that doesn't mean that parents should be left out of this process, because there is a big, family component here. Think of it as the Oscars. You have someone who wins Best Actor and you have supporting actors. And so parents play a very important supporting role in all of this. In usual years, and of course next year, in the fall or maybe late summer, we might be able to do this. College visits are really important, and oftentimes, families, parents can help arrange those college visits, or can take a look at what their financial picture looks like to gain a greater understanding of what they can afford at colleges or universities. Um, Also, parents can be very helpful in helping to, just kind of check in on students. But again, students, you're the drivers of this process. And so I always suggest, and so does Devin, when students come into our office, talking to new families about kind of setting up maybe some boundaries or some checking in times. Students who are in the session with us, I'm sure you will probably agree that the moment you became a sophomore or a junior, the only conversations that you're having with adults have to do with college or surround college. And that's a lot of pressure. And so what we want to do is kind of try to take that pressure away from students and help them enjoy the exploration process. And so what we suggest is that families choose one night a week that they all check in on the college process and how that is going. Maybe that could be for half an hour before, Saturday dinner, or maybe it's breakfast on Monday, whatever works. I mean, we have a lot of interesting open time right now, so you can probably have it any time of the day. But what's nice about that is that students, you're able to update mom and dad with what your progress is, and mom and dad, you're able to check in and see what's going on. And so it really facilitates positive communication. So this doesn't have to turn into, kind of some kind of tug and pull kind of match later on about, oh, mom and dad, you're bothering me too much, or hey, Susie, I don't know anything going on with your college process. So set some ground rules as a family, make it consistent, and you will not go wrong. So the most important part of this college process is thinking about which colleges are actually going to fit you the best. And from our estimation, there are three main elements of fit. There's an academic fit, there's a social fit, and then there's a financial fit. And how these play together will help you come up with a really meaningful list of colleges for your student or students for yourself. So we're going to go into these in a lot more detail coming up here. Academic fit. Academic fit does not mean that students need to know what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And in fact, really, majors are not that essential anymore. We go to a lot of conferences throughout the year, except for this year because they've all been canceled. But usually, in the spring and the summer, there are lots of college admission conferences and programs. And a couple of years ago, I heard a keynote speaker, and he was talking about a recent study that was out there on students kind of in the age cohort of 16 to 18. And they estimated that by the time those students were 38, so 20 years from now, that they would have had something like 8 to 10 different professional positions. That's a huge shift from, say, parents' generation, and definitely an even bigger shift from the generation before. And so this idea of knowing exactly what you want to do when you grow up just doesn't exist anymore. I think really what's important in terms of thinking about academic fit or thinking about what you want to do is really thinking about what employers are looking for and what graduate schools are looking for in those students. And there are kind of three areas that you should be considering. The most important feature that colleges and universities are looking at is the ability to communicate, whether that's in writing, in person, online, three very different kind of ways of doing so, but very important. The second is being able to look at complex problems and come up with creative solutions, or what we would refer to as critical thinking. And the third is this ability to either work independently or with a group of people on a project. You should find a college or university that allows you to really hone and develop those skills, and you won't go wrong in terms of the job world or the graduate school if you decide to go that route. The only majors that you actually need to know, or the only areas that really require you to declare a major right away, would be engineering, nursing, or accounting. If you're not 50% sure or more that you're going to go into those particular areas, you don't have to worry about a particular area of study. So students, don't feel overly pressured to know what you want to do when you grow up, because I bet if you asked your parents, about half of them probably don't know what they want to be when they grow up either. And so we're always continually learning and adjusting. So instead, academic fit is more about this idea of thinking about what works for you in your current academic environment. How do you learn best? What works for you? Like some students respond really well to great teaching, or mentoring in the classroom. Other students like to discuss what they're learning with their peers, so discussion-based classes are really critical. Some students really like to sit near the back of the class, listen to lecture, read at home, and learn more independently. And others really like to kind of get their hands into what they're doing and do more project-based kinds of learning. Well, the good news is there's no right or wrong way of learning. It's just recognizing what works for you. And then, of course, some colleges are better than other colleges at different learning styles. If you're someone who really needs to connect with a teacher and have small discussion-based classes, probably a large public university where you might have a lecture hall that has 300 to 500 students may not be the best choice for you. On the other hand, if you don't want to be called on all the time, you don't probably want to go to Cornell College in the middle of Iowa where they have classes that have 6 students and you're expected to be up on your work all the time. So thinking about that is important. Just as equally as important in terms of how you learn is how the kinds of students you like being around academically. Some students respond very well to a competitive environment where everyone is kind of aiming for that top grade. And some students do very well and respond positively to that kind of competitive nature. Other students don't, and they want a more cooperative environment. And in fact, there are even colleges out there that don't even have grades. So there's a lot of opportunity for every kind of students in terms of cooperative or competitive. The other thing thinking about academic fit is, some students who perform very well, say at the top of their class, really feel comfortable being at the top of their class. And sometimes going to school that's a big reach might actually not be the best academic fit because they may find themselves, they will find themselves in a big reach school with all the other students who are at the top of their class. And suddenly they might be getting B's and C's, and that's a really difficult thing for them. So some students might want to be a big fish on campus. Other students might want to kind of blend in. Either is totally fine, but just recognizing what works for you is what's important. So academic fit is certainly important, but in our estimation, social fit is really the most important part of this whole process. And for lack of a better term, it's finding a college that has your people. And so you have to think about, who are your people? Who do you hang out with? What kinds of characteristics do your friends have? What kind of activities do you engage with? Like, where do you usually meet your friends? Where do your social activities take place? And that's how you begin to figure out what social fit is all about. So you think about, what are the activities that you enjoy? For example, if you're someone who likes a big game day experience and you want to go to a football game or you want to go to a basketball game and you want to paint your face purple to match, the mascot at, TCU in Texas, that's awesome because that's a part that's very natural to you. If that's your choice, you probably don't want to go to St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland, where all they do is read books. There's actually only one athletic event each year on campus, and that's the annual croquet match with the Naval Academy next door. It gets really wild and crazy, I understand, but that's probably not going to do it for you in terms of what's going to work for you outside of the classroom. Think about where those natural places are where you're going to meet those friends because you're going to be starting new. You want to be in natural places where you can do so. If you're someone who likes to work out a lot, probably a college with a great workout facility is a must. You also want to think about kind of the climate on campus. Are students actively engaged in the environment? Are they politically active? Are you someone who, a faith-based institution is important? Thinking about the students on campus is really important. And climate on campus, of course, is most easily, I think, discerned when you visit campus. So hopefully later on this summer and into the fall and even next spring, you'll have those opportunities to visit them in person. Also thinking about the lifestyle on campus. Most students we meet with don't want to be in the classroom all the time and study all the time. They want a balance. They want to work hard, but they also want to have activities. And that lifestyle on campus is kind of up to you. You might be somebody who wants a quieter lifestyle, where students maybe, at St. John's are reading books all the time. And you want to sit under a tree and read a book, and that's, what you enjoy the most. Other students want to go to a lot of parties and want to go to athletic events. Others may want to engage in theater or have a campus that has a really strong arts tradition, and that's important. Those are all parts that make up your social fit. Location can also relate to this, although I would never make location the absolute #1 factor in your search, but location can matter. If you are someone, for example, who enjoys the great outdoors, probably going to a college in the middle of Manhattan or LA isn't going to do it for you, because it will take you a long time to get out, out of, or get into the out of doors. On the other hand, if you need or like a city, probably a small liberal arts college in the middle of Indiana isn't going to cut it for you either. And so those are some of the things that can kind of help you come up with your social fit. But just think about it right now, like just back up and think about what works for you in your social environment. In fact, being inside right now with COVID is a perfect opportunity to think about all those social things that you miss and what you want to find in your college experience coming up. And of course, we all know that college is not free, so there is a financial fit factor that comes into this as well. And one of the most important pieces of advice I think we can leave you with tonight, families, is to make sure you understand what you can afford in terms of a college education. And that includes, taking a look at your finances. If you have a financial planner or an accountant, they can help you with this and kind of see through that a little bit easier. But it's important for families to know what they can comfortably afford and what they might be able to reach for. It's also a time for you to think about, how do we feel about student loans? There are some student loans out there, like say Stafford loans, that are in a student's name, that have low interest rates, and they have an aggregate kind of limit in terms of what students can take out, that are maybe not that bad, but you probably don't want to take out a lot of private loans or things like that. But that's a family discussion and decision in terms of how you want to afford this. Once you know what you think you can afford, then you want to think about looking at this college list, but you don't want to make assumptions about what you can and cannot afford in a college or university. If you look at only a sticker price, it'll probably give you a heart attack for some of these schools. In terms of in-state public education, University of Oregon this year, all in, including tuition fees, room and board and books, is $33,000 a year. The most expensive private or college university that we've seen this year was $79,000 all in. That is not inexpensive. But what we know is that going to college or university, or affording a college or university, is kind of like buying a car, in that you rarely pay full sticker price. And so there are ways to make this more affordable, because financial aid is available. And financial aid too often is thought of as just being need-based, in terms of not, not making enough to write a check for $50,000 a year, which most families cannot. So there is need-based aid, which is based on a family's income and assets, but there are also other kinds of financial aid available. There's merit-based, and merit-based is isn't based at all on what a family makes or what their assets are, but it's all about what students have done in and outside of the classroom. So on grades and test scores and leadership, those pieces, basically what we would be calling, scholarships. Most scholarships that colleges and universities dole out are based on merit. And then for those of you who have talent in, say, art, music, athletics, there are also talent-based scholarships out there for students. So there are a lot of ways to suddenly take that $79,000 a year down to $40,000 or $35,000. In fact, what's interesting is that sometimes families think they can only afford an in-state education. And we have great public institutions here, so I'm not telling you not to look at those. But what's interesting is usually in a four-year school, we expect students to graduate in 4 years. At a lot of public colleges and universities, it's a little bit challenging to do so. So oftentimes when you're thinking about what you can afford, you almost want to think about it's a pretty strong possibility you might be at a public university for 5 years. Whereas private colleges and universities, they make their reputations on students graduating in 4 years. So if we do a quick math problem, and if I make a mistake, I'm going to apologize right away, because I am not a math major. That's why I'm a college counselor. But let's say you live in West Virginia and you get into West Virginia State University, and it's going to cost you $25,000 a year with some scholarship money that you got. Okay, so 5 times $25,000 is $125,000 over the course of your education. Let's say you apply to Carroll College in Montana, which is a really great, small, liberal arts focused college. let's say you get in there and you get some, and their all-in costs are roughly about $50,000 a year, but let's say you get a $20,000 scholarship. Suddenly you're paying $30,000 a year there, which may sound like it's more, but when you know you're going to graduate in 4 years, suddenly you're paying $120,000 over 4 years versus 125 over 5, and you don't have that opportunity cost of that lost year of being in school when you could be, making an income with a job or going to graduate school. So there are ways when students can actually, get some great bargains with private colleges or universities. A lot of that has to do with being flexible in terms of which part of the country you might want to go to. Like a lot of times students want to go, to the Northeast, or they want to go to California and maybe drop in Colorado, and then everything else is considered flyover states. But you should look at some of those flyover states, in the Midwest, upper Midwest. There are great cities there. Or heaven forbid, we look at the South. A lot of schools in the South have really fantastic, starting places in terms of their tuition. You get a solid scholarship there, and you could actually go out of state for what you might pay in state. So don't just assume, look at these schools and kind of figure it out. And there are some great tools that can help you assess whether those are going to be affordable as well. The first is called the FAFSA Forecaster. And the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This is one of the documents that you would fill out to apply for need-based aid at colleges and universities. The FAFSA Forecaster, you basically plug in your tax information. You just Google it, find the one that's free, fill it out, and it will spit out what's called an expected family contribution, or an EFC, for you. And that will give you the amount that the federal government thinks you can afford each year to pay for your students' education. It's either laughable or cryable sometimes. Sometimes it's a pleasant surprise, but frankly, I am encouraging all families to do this year, just because there's probably been some change in terms of college savings based on stock market, but also just the skyrocketing cost of education. A lot of families who thought they wouldn't afford or be able to qualify for need-based aid might qualify for some. So definitely do that. The other thing that's really fantastic is this thing called the net price calculator. And the net price calculator is a requirement that all colleges and universities need to have. You can plug in last year's tax information, or actually this year's tax information. You can then kind of play around with the students' grades, test scores. They may ask some other features about leadership or activities, and then it will give you an estimate of what it's going to cost for you to attend that college or university for that first year. So it's a really helpful tool. Most of the times you can get a link on that directly from the school's admissions website or the financial aid website. If you can't seem to find it, you can probably make some assumptions that net price calculator is hidden for certain reasons. So it should be really easy for you to find. But if you think about all these factors, the academic, the social, and the financial, and you really consider, what's going to work for you and what's not, it's going to help you a lot to narrow down those 2,000 or so colleges and universities that are out there in the United States to see what actually fits you. And that's what the ultimate goal is, certainly in our office, and certainly it should be for you at home as well. So, all right, so I'll turn it over to Devon to talk a little bit about, now that you know all of these things, how do you do your research?
Hi, thank you. So, no more I heard. You want to do research, you're going to hear about a lot of colleges from a lot of well-meaning people, family, friends, neighbors, extended family, students who graduated last year and attending college. And that's all great information, and you should absolutely listen to what they're saying. But you want to do your own research, because a person who says, oh, you're going to love UC Berkeley, another person may say, oh, you're going to love Northwestern, or you're going to love Bowdoin College. They're all very different schools. So you want to do your research, as Eric mentioned, about fit, academic, social, financial. So to do that, there are several books and many websites that you can explore to learn about colleges. Most colleges, all colleges have their websites. So we recommend that you go to their websites and start to really do some deep research about that school. Another avenue to do your research are college fairs. Now, those usually happen in the fall and spring, and it's usually in a larger arena like convention center, areas like that. And over 300 colleges can be found at college fairs. And this is a great opportunity for you and your family to go and meet with a college counselor, pick up some material, ask some questions about the college. So it really saves families time and money to be able to go to a college fair instead of visiting each college across the country initially. Another great opportunity to do research are info sessions. Now that is where colleges will offer a specific and individual info session about their school. And that can be held in a hotel conference room where families come and talk to several admissions counselors and get a lot of in-depth information about that college. So info sessions are wonderful. High school visits. Hopefully this fall, colleges will be able to come to high schools and give a presentation. Usually they present in the counseling center or the career center, and they'll let the schools know when they'll be there. There'll be announcements in your at your high school for when they're going to be there. And that is a great opportunity to sit down with a counselor from a college. It could be yourself, it could be just a small group of students, and learn about that college and ask questions of information you have not been able to find on their websites. And then visiting campus is always a great way to really get a sense of that school. We're hoping that things will be a lot healthier in the fall, and that you'll be able to go and visit schools that you have done your research. A great time to visit campus is going to be the weekend of Labor Day, or the week before Labor Day, because colleges will be in session, but high schools will generally not start classes until after Labor Day. And then another great way to do research is an interview with a college counselor to ask in-depth questions. That's an opportunity to be able to give them perhaps your activity resume, ask questions, and really get a feel for what that college is offering. So ways to do research and resources. Well, there are great books out there. These we really encourage families and students to look through. One is the FISC Guide. Another is the Insider's Guide to the Colleges, Colleges That Change Lives, and the College Finder. These are great references because colleges do not pay to be into these books. So you get a great perspective from the writers. Insider's Guide to the Colleges is actually written by students who are interviewing students at over 300 colleges. Then there's also online searches that you can do. College Board Big Future is a great online search. You can enter information specifically about region, size, major, and it'll give you some information about what colleges to research. Also, Naviance and Family Connection, which is offered through your high schools, is also another great online resource to explore colleges. However, those Naviance, Family Connection, and College Board don't really talk about social fit. It'll be very emphasis on academic fit and possibly financial fit. So to really dive down into social fit, we recommend that you look at Unigo and YouTube videos. Look for YouTube videos that are been made by students at that school, not the college marketing piece. A lot of times, a college student will strap on a GoPro camera on their helmet and start skateboarding through campus and stopping and talking to students or faculty. And so that's a really great way to get a sense of the social fit. So for visual and performing arts students, you're at home, you're not in the studio, and this can be some challenging times for you as you're still continuing to build your portfolio, work on your art skills, uh, continue to really dive into your concepts. So some areas that you can explore for outside guidance. YouTube, again, is a great resource for quick videos, how-to videos, for all different areas of art exploration. And udemy.com is actually a really good website for you to check out. You can find courses for as low as like less than $10 that are actually hands-on demos. So that's going to be a great resource for students who are in the visual arts. You also want to research school websites for portfolio requirements. Every school is going to have different requirements. Generally, it's going to be from 10 to 20 images of work, but that can, there's a lot of variables in that portfolio number. So you want to go to those school websites. A great way to have feedback on your portfolio is ACADSlideroom.com. That is a group of private colleges that are offering an opportunity for you to upload, I believe, approximately 6 images. You fill out a form, and you can actually select the colleges that you would like to get feedback on your portfolio images. So I highly recommend that you check out ACADSlideroom.com. For performing arts students, you want to, again, continue to keep working on your monologues, keep working on your performing arts. Students for musical theater, you want to check out unifiedauditions.com. That is an organization where colleges will come to a certain city, and you can perform in front of a lot of different schools to again save yourself time and money. So you want to go to unifiedauditions.com. They are in New York, Chicago, and LA for the auditions. And then you want to research school websites again for audition times and application deadlines, because they will vary by school. So speaking of deadlines, there are several different deadlines that you want to be aware of. The first deadline is early decision. That is a deadline where if you find a school that is that is a school that you would absolutely love to be accepted to. You've done your research, you've visited other schools to do a compare and contrast, and this is the school that you would really love to be accepted. If the school offers early decision, then you would apply to that. You can only apply to one school early decision. So be aware of that. And it's contractual. So you have to sign it on the application. Your parents have to sign it. Your high school counselor has to sign it. So everybody knows that you're only applying to one school early decision. Early action is much more flexible. You can apply almost every school that offers early action to early action in multiple schools. So that is not contractual. These two, early decision and early action, means that you apply earlier and you find out an acceptance decision earlier as well. Then there is a priority deadline that you can apply to. That schools may offer. Then you can apply regular decision. Regular decision is generally in January, from January 1st to January 15th. And then there's rolling admission, where a school will just continue to accept applications, and once they're completed, they'll let you know an acceptance decision.
So once you get an application in, what do colleges and universities actually look at when they are assessing that application? What's most important? And this is a list of a lot of different factors, but always, always, always the most important factor that colleges and universities consider is students' success in a rigorous curriculum. Now, a rigorous curriculum does not mean that you have to be a full IB student or that you have to take every AP class available. A rigorous curriculum means challenging yourself. So taking courses that will help you grow, but you don't have to take as many AP classes as everybody else, or you may not even decide to take any AP classes. Rigor might mean that you are taking all AP classes depending on where you're at, but success in that curriculum is really important. I would trust your high school counselors to guide you in terms of, which kinds of courses you should be taking. Now, what does success mean? Success means really, A's and B's mostly there. And we often get the question, is it more important to get a 4.0 and take easy classes or to take hard classes and get a lot of B's? And the question is neither. You want to take classes that are rigorous for you and get mostly A's and B's, because what happens is that colleges and universities will look not just at your overall GPA, they'll look at grades in different subject areas from that. So what's important is just making sure that you challenge yourself. And in fact, when your counselor, your high school counselor, puts together your recommendation letter and school report next year, they will actually make an assessment of the rigor of your curriculum in comparison to your peers. But make sure that you are challenging yourself so much that you're learning more and preparing for college, but not so much that you're spending 7 hours a night and you're up until 2, 3 a.m. in the morning trying to figure out all of this work. Balance is really important. The second thing that colleges typically look at are SAT and ACT scores. Now, most of you have probably heard that, SAT and ACT scores or testing dates have been canceled recently, that a lot of colleges are going test optional, and so they may not be as important as a whole. But I will say that for students who have taken them already, and especially those students who did well in them, that's still going to be a plus and bonus in the process. So it wasn't a waste of time. But for students who haven't been able to, you're also not going to be penalized for not being able to take those as well. There are a lot of schools that were already test optional, by the way. And so if you are, a student who is just morally opposed to taking a test on every Saturday that it's available, or, testing is just not your forte, well, good news. There's a lot of options out there. In fact, there is a website called Fair Test, FAIR test.org, and it has a complete listing of all of the traditionally test optional schools. Then, like I said, they don't just look at your overall GPA, but they look at what goes into that. So schools will look at different grades or different subjects based on what you want to major in. So let's say you want to be a nurse, they're going to look at your math and your science grades a lot more heavily than, say, your English grades. So I'm telling you to blow off your English class or anything like that. You want to do as well as you can, but definitely they're going to look more at those courses that are going to be an indicative of your success in those courses in college. Let's say if you're thinking about becoming an attorney, then they're going to look more at things like your social science courses or your English courses for those communication skills. They'll also look at trend in grades. They'll look at consistency. If you had a particular semester that you didn't do so well, they will also notice that, but there are opportunities on the application to address that proactively. So know that you can give them an explanation. The essay is also going to be much more important this year than in previous years. Not that it's been unimportant, but given the fact that there aren't going to be as many students applying with test scores, that essay is an opportunity for students to really kind of showcase who they are beyond those measurables. Extracurricular activities, also important, but there is a big myth out there that you have to be involved or engaged in 10 different activities and be the president of all of them and have won a Nobel Peace Prize and that kind of stuff to be a great applicant. And that's probably one of the most dangerous myths out there. Colleges would rather that students engage in 1 or 2 activities at a higher level. So that allows you to not only impact that organization, but also to impact your own growth and develop your leadership skills in those particular strengths. So in fact, a lot of colleges like to say they like well lopsided students who have a couple different things they spend a lot of time in. That doesn't mean they don't like well-rounded students, but on the other hand, don't feel like you have to go out there and join every activity. The other thing in activities is make sure no matter which ones you choose, you just love them, you have an interest in them, and they're going to be fun for you. They don't have to be something that you think will get you into a college or university, because this whole exercise is really an exercise in authenticity. It's not about, filling out, checking off boxes on an application. It's really about who am I, and how can I show the colleges and universities who I am in this application. Sometimes they'll look at class rank, letters of recommendation. Also, I already mentioned there's a counselor recommendation, and then there are two from junior or senior year teachers in core subject areas. So that would be math, history, social sciences, English, and foreign language. If you are a performing or visual arts student, then that would also be considered to be a core teacher. And you don't need a note from your senator or someone famous. That's not going to impress anybody. The only time you would do a note from your senator is if, you did an internship, in her office or something like that. But you do not need to impress. You do want to choose teachers who can actually talk about who you are academically and also how you've engaged within the classroom. All right, so we've kind of talked a little bit about COVID. Obviously, I think what's really important with COVID is that we really don't know for sure how this is going to impact students. Right now, colleges and universities are kind of frantically, working to try to consolidate their entering class for next year. So they're working with seniors, and so they are giving some hints about what they're going to do for next year's graduating class of 2021, but we don't know for sure. What we do know, though, is that any of the disruptions that you're having in your school right now, some of you are still doing, a regular schedule online. Some of you have wrapped up your courses. Some of you are going to get letter grades for your classes. Some of you are going to get pass, no pass. What's really critical to understand and take with you is that the colleges are not going to penalize students for situations beyond their control. And if you think about it, we're all kind of in a similar boat. I'm not going to say we're in the same boat because, we might be in the same boat. We're all in different waters because some students have better access to online opportunities, in those kinds of things. But I read yesterday in an article that 94% of school age students are not going to school around the globe right now. So you are basically, colleges and universities understand this. Know also that your curriculum is not compared to the school down the street. It's compared to the student's curriculum at your school. So everyone would be pass fail at that particular school, or they would have letter grades. So no, that's the case. Already mentioned that a lot of schools are going SAT, ACT optional. However, we're still encouraging students to take those tests when they are offered. SAT did delay their test again, but they're going to offer it again later this summer, and they're going to add an extra month, their test date, into the fall. And so we do encourage you to do that because some schools, even if they're test optional, may require an SAT or ACT score for consideration for merit scholarship money. Or for special programs like, say, an honors level program. So make sure you are still taking those, and then you can assess later if you actually need to submit them or not. There is a rumor out there that we've been hearing among student and parent groups that colleges are going to change their deadlines and you'll be able to apply later. I don't really buy that, just simply because even with a regular decision deadline date, which is kind of January 1, January 15th, colleges and universities only have a very short period of time to review those applications. And if you make that later, it's going to be impossible for a lot of schools to get through those. So you should operate under the assumption that deadline dates are still going to stay the same. And as we know, this is fluid, so anything can happen. So you always want to be updating what's going on in terms of staying in contact with your colleges or your admission counselor. The bottom line is we're going to get through this. This is temporary. It is disruptive. It's scary for some folks, for sure, for a lot of us. But at the end of this, we'll be able to, you'll be able to move through your application process in a normal fashion in kind of an abnormal time. So hopefully that can allay some of the stress and anxiety around this piece of it. You can still do all of these things online, and you can do it effectively. So we have given you a lot of information tonight. We always think, oh, we can do this in 30, 45 minutes. Once again, it's taken us almost an hour, but we're going to have more time for questions, which is nice. But the bottom line is it's really about perspective here. If you want to go to college, you will go to college. There are colleges and universities out there for every kind of student. You know, students who don't want grades, students who have struggled in high school, students who have had a 4.0 and want to be, you know, incredibly challenged. There are students, there are colleges out there for everyone. The thing is, though, is the vast majority of colleges and universities accept well over 75% of their students. You know, this is not about one list of, you know, 8 colleges that are only good and no other colleges are good. There are fantastic institutions. And in fact, when Devon and I put together college lists for students, we draw from a larger list of about 500 to 600 colleges
Mhm.
that we think do a great job based on the fit of that student. Um, Also remember that this is a process. You know, you may change your mind multiple times, and that's okay. Because honestly, what's more important than finding that ultimate school is figuring out who you are in this process, because then you will find that right school. If you can understand who you are, what you want in your process, and you can match that with a school, it's pretty exciting. And you'll be able to do that. And so you should think of this not as something you have to drag yourself through, but have fun with the process. For most of the students on here, this is the first really big decision that you get to make. It should be exciting. It should be fun. So enjoy this because you only go through it once. Also, some of you are going to get some, you know, everyone's going to get some acceptance letters and everyone's probably going to get you know, a denial letter or two. But remember to not take that personally. It's not because you can't do well at that college or university, or that you don't look great in in those school colors or anything like that. It really has to do with numbers. There are just some schools out there that don't have as many spaces available for the number of students who are applying. It really is that simple. And someone's not looking at you like, oh, that student was a loser, so we're not going to let them in. You know, you have a lot of value, and a lot of colleges and universities are going to say yes to you. The other thing is, admission is not the end game here. It's just a starting point for you, because really the experiences you have in college are going to outweigh it all. There was a list that came out several years ago that had like the top 500 CEOs in the country and the colleges and universities that they went to. And half of them went to schools that at that time I hadn't even heard of, because it's all about what you do with your college experience. You know, colleges and universities, you know, whether it's Harvard, whether it's Linfield, whether it's some school we've never ever heard of, they offer you a smorgasbord or, you know, buffet of experiences that you can choose from, and you choose which internships you have, which classes you want to take, you know, what kind of research you want to engage with, you know, what kinds of leadership activities and clubs you engage in as well. It's up to you to take advantage of that. And so what you do in college is paramount to the name on your bumper sticker. It's always, you know, what you get when you're there. So we hope that you have a lot of fun with that. Okay, so early on, I mentioned that we're doing a lot of these series. The one reason that we're doing this is that Devon and I volunteer a lot of time this time of year and give presentations at area high schools, you know, whether they're keynote speeches or special sessions. And obviously those aren't happening. And so we want to make sure that you have access to more information as well. And you can see here, again, we're going to send this to you, but we have a visual and performing arts colleges. A lot of you are actually signed up for that already, which is wonderful. That's coming up on May 11th, so it'll be a lot more in detail and depth. Devon will be doing that. We'll have an admission essay workshop on June 16th. And then financial aid and scholarships, we'll have a guest speaker, Jennifer Satalino from Oregon Goes to College, and she'll be doing that on August 11th. So there are a lot of options here. The email that we will be sending you the next couple days will actually have a link to sign up for these as well, so you don't have to go searching for them. But all complimentary and available. We just want to make sure we help as many students as possible when it's harder to get those resources. And I want to also just point out too, there's also wonderful resources from your high school counseling office in terms of their online options too. So don't forget to look at those either. All right. And then And then finally, just a little bit about us. We offer comprehensive college counseling plans. We've been doing this a long time. We also offer a la carte options like just help with essays and applications. Even, if you just need a one-time meeting to kind of run through things, we've kind of expanded our offerings to be able to assist students. So if you're interested in that, you see our information there. Of course, you'll get an email from us tomorrow as well. And so we're just available for you if you need anything, while we're going through this kind of challenging kind of times as well. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. I know we've had a few come through. If you have a question, some things that we didn't cover, please feel free to put them in the chat bar. And then Devin and I are just going to kind of alternate which ones we respond to. And the first one I think is a little bit higher up, but Devin, I think you could start with that one. It's any advice on deciding to pursue a BFA or BA?
Yes, and I will cover that in